Have you ever laid in bed, your body exhausted, but your mind refuses to stop? You replay conversations, you imagine worst-case scenarios, you worry about tomorrow, you question yesterday. The more you think, the less peace you feel. Here's the question. What if your biggest battle isn't happening around you, but inside your own mind? What if the enemy doesn't need to destroy your life? He only needs to keep your thoughts trapped. Today, we're going to discover what God says about overthinking, why your mind feels so heavy, why some battles can never be won by thinking harder, and how God can give you a peace that doesn't depend on your circumstances. Stay until the end, and because one Bible truth may completely change the way you fight anxiety forever. Most people believe overthinking is simply being careful, but that's not always true. Sometimes overthinking is fear wearing the mask of wisdom. You think you're preparing, but you're actually worrying. You think you're solving problems, but you're only creating new ones. The mind was designed to process truth, not carry endless fear. That's why so many people feel mentally exhausted. Nothing terrible happened today, yet they're drained. Why? Because they've lived through hundreds of imaginary disasters inside their mind. Maybe that's you. Maybe every small problem becomes a giant mountain. A delayed message, a doctor's appointment, money, relationships, your future, your family, your purpose. Everything becomes another reason to think and think and think again. But here's something beautiful. God never asked you to understand everything. He asked you to trust Him. Those are two very different things. The world says, if you think enough, you'll find peace. God says, if you trust me, you'll receive peace. Think about that. One depends on your brain. The other depends on your faith. Overthinking keeps asking, what if? Faith keeps answering, even if, God is still with me. That's why two people can face the same storm. One falls apart, the other stands strong. The difference isn't circumstances, it's where their thoughts live. Some thoughts grow in fear, others grow in faith. The Bible reminds us not to be anxious about anything. Instead, bring everything to God in prayer. Notice something incredible. God didn't say, pretend your problems don't exist. He said, bring them to me. That's an invitation, not to carry everything alone. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with heavy rocks. Every worry, another rock. Every fear, another rock. Every unanswered question, another rock. Eventually, you collapse. Now imagine someone stronger says, give me the backpack. Wouldn't it be foolish to keep carrying it? Yet spiritually, that's exactly what many of us do. Jesus keeps saying, come to me. But we keep saying, I'll figure it out myself. And maybe your peace isn't missing. Maybe it's waiting on the other side of surrender. Because peace doesn't come from controlling tomorrow. Peace comes from trusting the one who already lives in tomorrow. God isn't surprised by next week. He's already there. He already knows every answer you're desperately trying to figure out tonight. You don't have to know everything. You simply need to know Him, and that's enough. There is something the enemy wants more than your comfort. He wants your focus, because whatever controls your focus often controls your life. When your mind is filled with endless what-ifs, you stop noticing the God is. What if I fail? What if they leave? What if nothing changes? Meanwhile, God quietly whispers, I am with you. Notice the difference. Fear talks about a future it cannot predict. God speaks from eternity. He already knows the ending before the beginning. That means the future you're afraid of is not unknown to him. Many people believe peace comes after their problems disappear. But the Bible tells a different story. God often gives peace in the middle of the storm, not after it. Think about the disciples in the boat. The waves were real, the wind was real, the danger was real. But Jesus was also in the boat. The storm didn't prove God had abandoned them. It became the place where they discovered how powerful he really was. Maybe your overthinking isn't proof that God is silent. Maybe it's an invitation to stop listening to fear and start listening to his voice. Every day, your mind receives thousands of thoughts. Not every thought deserves your attention. Just because a thought enters your mind doesn't mean it speaks the truth. Ask yourself, does this thought bring me closer to God? Does it produce faith or fear? Is this thought based on truth or imagination? If the answer is fear, don't build a home for it. Let it pass. Replace it with God's promises. When fear says you're alone, God says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. When fear says you'll never make it, God says, my grace is sufficient for you. When fear says everything is falling apart, God says, I am working all things together for good. This is how spiritual battles are won, not by louder emotions, but by stronger truth. Sometimes God doesn't remove the storm immediately because he's teaching you something greater than comfort. He's teaching dependence. Anyone can trust God when life is easy. Real faith grows when nothing makes sense. Maybe you've been praying, God, remove this anxiety. And God has been answering, come closer to me. Because his greatest gift isn't always a changed situation. Sometimes his greatest gift is a changed heart. Think about a child walking with a loving father. The child doesn't know the road. The father does. The child doesn't need all the answers. He only needs to keep holding his father's hand. That's what faith looks like. You don't have to understand every step. You only have to stay close to the one who does. So, today, stop trying to carry tomorrow before it arrives. God has given you grace for today. Tomorrow's grace will come tomorrow. Don't spend today's strength fighting tomorrow's imaginary battles. Instead, wake up each morning and simply pray. Lord, guide my thoughts, guard my heart. Help me trust you more than I trust my fears. Fill my mind with your truth and let your peace become louder than my anxiety. That simple prayer can change the direction of your entire day. Remember this, overthinking promises control, but only God gives peace. Fear promises protection, but only God provides security. Anxiety promises preparation, but only faith brings rest. If your mind has been tired, if your heart has been heavy, if you've been carrying burdens that no one else can see, you don't have to carry them anymore. Lay them at the feet of Jesus. He isn't disappointed in you. He isn't tired of hearing your prayers. He isn't counting how many times you've worried. He is inviting you to come home to his peace. Maybe today is the day you stop asking, what if everything goes wrong? And start asking, what if God is already working in ways I cannot yet see? That single question changes everything, because the same God who opened seas, fed thousands, healed the broken, raised the dead, is still working today. He has not forgotten your name. He has not overlooked your pain. He has not abandoned your future. Even when you cannot see his hand, you can trust his heart. So before this video ends, take one deep breath. Close your eyes if you can, and surrender every anxious thought to God. Say,